Hello, this is chapter 2 of the story of Gail Borden. And the chapter title is called War. And there is the picture there. We will see how that relates to the story. The first decade after Texas was opened to Americans, there was little question in the minds of the settlers about where their allegiance belonged. They were grateful to Mexico for generous grants of land, some 20 million acres. They lived in peace for 10 years, but trouble broke out in 1832. A garrison recruited from Mexican jails and commanded by a swaggering fugitive from justice was sent to collect taxes. The soldiers became abusive and made exorbitant demands. A group of Texans who long had resented Mexican rule welcomed a chance to drive them out. Austin, the Bordens, and other leaders were opposed to rebellion. They called a convention at San Felipe and assured the Mexican government of Texas loyalty. They did, however, petition for greater freedom in local government. Gail Borden attended the convention. The next year, a second convention was held, and it was there Gail met Sam Houston, who was to become Texas's great military leader and first president. Gail also helped write the first of Texas' 7 constitutions. The convention chose Austin to go to Mexico City to petition for statehood and seek approval of the Constitution. Austin placed the affairs of his land office in Gail's hands. He set out confidently. His last words as he rode down the trail were, "For God's sake, don't let my people do anything foolish or rash while I'm away." Austin found Mexico City torn by revolution. In 1822, Santa Anna, a young Veracruz lieutenant, had started a revolt. It doomed Emperor, I don't know how to say this name, Iturbide, Iturbide. I think I'd have to know better about speaking Spanish, maybe. His government fell. A republic was set up, but Santa Anna had no taste for peace, no desire for freedom for his countrymen. He had fought under the banner of democracy only to gain popularity. He had tasted a little power and liked its flavor. He dreamed of the day when he alone would rule Mexico and all her possessions. He was too shrewd to buck the tide of freedom openly. He waited. He plotted. He stirred up one revolt after another. Finally, his chance came. In 1832, he overthrew the president. Shortly after arriving in Mexico City, Austin realized he was dealing with a man who talked democracy and worked for dictatorship. He was not even given a hearing. He was thrown into a dungeon, and there he was kept prisoner for nearly 2 years. Finally, he was freed and allowed to return home. He reached Texas in September 1835. He told the colonists they must fight or submit to a dictator. The call to arms came. Gail and his brothers were among the first to answer. Mexican troops were marching on San Antonio. They were commanded by General Coss, Santa Anna's brother-in-law. He had orders to arrest Texans charged with treason and take them to Mexico for trial. Texas met the challenge. Austin led 300 volunteers against the invaders. Tom, Pascal, John fought at his side. Those were his brothers. Gail was left behind in San Felipe. Gail had to handle Austin's affairs. More important, he was needed there to publish a newspaper that would rally support to the cause. That's what the picture is about. What they're doing there is they're printing the newspaper. And this must be Gail Borden there, as he's got the print set. Oh my goodness, now I got to figure out where I was. Okay. Gail worked day and night. He questioned every traveler from San Antonio. He collected every scrap of information about movements of enemy troops. The first issue of his newspaper, the Telegraph and Texas Land Register, came off the press October 10th, 1835. It told its readers, "War is our only recourse. There is no other remedy but to defend our rights, ourselves, and our country by force of arms." Gale wrote the history of Texas as it was being made. In the Telegraph, he told of the courage of Austin's undisciplined, nondescript fighters. They had no uniforms, no training. They were badly outnumbered. They fought by instinct, but they met and captured General Coss and his soldiers. Gale told of this great victory. Gale told of this great victory. He reported the selection of hard-riding, hard-fighting Sam Houston as commander-in-chief of the armies of Texas. He warned that Santa Anna himself was marching on Texas with a large force. He told the tragic story of the Alamo, a Franciscan mission near San Antonio. There, a handful of Texans held off Santa Anna's thousands for 3 weeks. Then, on March 6, 1836, they were massacred. He printed Texas' Declaration of Independence, issued March 2nd, 1836. He headlined the battle cry of the new republic, "Remember the Alamo." Worse news came, but Gale preached hope, determination. 3 forces stood between Texas and defeat: 2 small bands in the southwest and 300 men under Sam Houston. One of the units in the southwest was wiped out. The Mexicans promised to treat the other fairly if it would give up. The Texans surrendered, and firing squads mowed down all but a few on Palm Sunday, March 27th. And that day is actually tomorrow, because this is the 26th. Houston dared not stand and fight. He retreated slowly toward the Colorado, picking up recruits along the way. Texas seemed lost. Gail Borden refused to admit it. Fast riders stuffed their buckskin jackets with copies of the Telegraph. They carried the news throughout the land. The courage of Texas was on every tongue. Sympathy grew, support came, recruits poured in, mostly from the USA. The tide of defeat swept on. Houston retreated through San Felipe, Santa Anna at his heels. Civilians fled in panic. Gale sent his family to Galveston. He stayed with his press. He printed a final issue of the Telegraph in San Felipe as the town went up in flames, and then escaped to Harrisburg with his equipment. The need for a newspaper to rally men who loved freedom was never more urgent. Santa Anna was moving on Harrisburg. Gale set up shop. He went to work on an issue dated April 14th, 1836. It never came off the press, but journalists are proud of the opening words of that unfinished issue. "We promise the public of our beloved country that our press will never cease its operation until our silence shall announce to them that there is no more in Texas a resting place for a free press, nor for a government of the people." Gale and his printer worked until Santa Anna neared the outskirts of Harrisburg. Gale escaped to Galveston. The Mexicans burned his print shop and threw his press into the river. Texas seemed doomed. And then a chance came. Houston was a cagey fighter. He had lived for years with the Cherokees. He knew all their tricks. He kept retreating, luring the Mexicans farther from home. Then word came that Santa Anna had entered Harrisburg with only 500 foot soldiers and 50 horsemen. The Mexican general was so sure of victory he had left the main body of his troops on the other side of the Brazos River. Houston smelled victory. He closed in for the kill. On April 21st, the two armies met along the Brazos River below Harrisburg. Houston had 1,000 men. Reinforcement had swelled Santa Anna's forces to 1,200. The Texans formed a battle line. They charged. In a quarter of an hour, victory was theirs. Santa Anna was captured the next day. Texas was saved. That's chapter 2. A lot of those things happening kind of right around the now Houston area. And talking about Sam Houston. I wonder where at the Brazos River that occurred. Why don't you look that one up?